Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by my boys, Caden Sproul and Kyle Collier, both fellow producers at Sports Radio 810 WHB. And in this video, we're going to get into some of the positives from the Chiefs' impressive 30-17 win over the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. So, fellas, we saw the Chiefs go out primetime on Sunday night and stick it to one of the best teams in the NFL. So my first question for you is, what was your biggest positive coming out of this game? And we'll start with Caden.
Yeah, I kind of got like an outside the box look at this game, and my takeaway, or positive takeaway, I guess you could say, from this game is that the Chiefs really don't know their identity, which, sounds bad on the surface, but I think that's a pretty good thing for this team at this point. I like to look at, the Mahomes era in two different, sections. I think you look at the 2018 through like 2021 or 2022 season. Everybody knows, it's the high-flying offense, in the first season, I think we were second to last in total defense. So through the first 4 years of Mahomes' career, it was basically 4 or 5, it was just the offensive side, and that was basically the identity. And then, of course, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been the defense that has carried them through the playoffs and through these big games. And I think just so far through this season, both sides of the ball have just been on a roller coaster ride as far as success. When you look at week 1, they gave up over 300 yards passing to Justin Herbert. And I think they had close to 500 total yards of offense, which is unheard of from this Chiefs defense. And then they played a little bit better against the Eagles week 2. Obviously, we know what that offense has struggled a lot through the first few weeks of the season, so it's not really you can't really give a grade on that game. Of course, Jacksonville last week, they gave up 24 points. The defense did, and then. When you look at the offensive side, obviously they struggled through the first few weeks of the season, not having Xavier Worthy, granted, but then they've played very well over the last few weeks. So that just goes back to what I was saying. Like, they've just been on a roller coaster on both sides of the week, or both sides of the ball. I'm sorry, but I'd like to see some consistency from one side, and then hopefully they can kind of keep that balance. Though I like this, having this well-oiled machine. Having a great team on both sides of the ball, obviously just held the Lions to 17 points. They came in averaging, I think, close to 34. So just a well-oiled machine so far on both sides of the ball, I'd say.
Yeah, and to your point, Caden, this staff from Sam McDowell, if not for those kneel downs to end the game, the Chiefs would have produced 6+ yards per play in back-to-back games for the first time in a little over 2 years. So the offense is back. I remember the Ravens game. The big question was, is this offense for real? And then Jacksonville, they still looked a little bit for real. Now against Detroit, yeah, this offense is back. They're for real, and they're going to get even better when number 4 comes back next week. So yeah, that's pretty much my positive. They look efficient. They look like they got their groove back. I think there wouldn't been so much of a hubbub, or so many fans wouldn't be so worried about the offense had Xavier Worthy not been injured on the third play from scrimmage in the Chiefs season. They built an offense around that guy until Rashee Rice was going to get back. So yeah, Worthy gets back. All of a sudden, they look great. And I really think that was going to be what the offense would have looked like the whole way through. But going into week 7 without Rashee Rice, you come back 3-3. Now, I think some fans, there were some close games maybe the Chiefs should have probably won, but this is not bad. And right now, you're exiting this game with the Lions with 0 injuries. Rashee Rice is back. I know Josh Simmons is a question mark, but you can't help but not feel good.
I think that you make a great point that the Chiefs survived the storm. They went 3-3 without Rashee Rice. You're about to add him back in this offense. And over the last 3 games, you put up 37 against the Ravens, you put up 28 against Jacksonville, and you just dropped 30 on one of the best teams in the NFL and probably the best team in the NFC. And so when you add all of that together, the Chiefs were able to squeak by without their number 1 pass catching option, and they're also the healthier team, this year than they were last year. And I think that's probably my biggest positive. Even though the Chiefs have a substantially worse record at week 7 of this year than they did last year, Would either of you argue that, this team is by far and away a better team than they were last year at this point?
No, I definitely wouldn't argue that. And they made a good point of that on the broadcast last night. And they said, I mean, Chris Collinsworth said that, just the feel throughout this locker room and talking to these guys is they feel better this year at 2-3, obviously 3-3 now, but they felt better at 2-3 this year than they did at, well, I think it maybe was 5-0 or 4-1 last year. I can't remember exactly what it was.
They were 6-0. They didn't
Yeah.
lose till Buffalo. So
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
stage
Yeah.
last year, they were undefeated.
Yeah, so 5-0. But yeah, they felt better about this overall roster and this team that they have this year at 2-3 than they did last year, which is crazy to say, but I agree with that. I think this team is more complete. I think from top to bottom, I think that there's more depth than they had last year. So yeah, I think when you look at coming into the season, if you asked us, if asked if we're going to be 3-3 after 6 games, I think everybody would, be scared of that. But then when you ask, are you going to have Xavier Worthy and Rasheed Rice for all those games, and you take them away for the first 3 games, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody would imagine we'd be 3-3 if you take both of them out of the equation.
Yeah, no, they definitely look more complete, and the biggest reason for that is I think the offensive line. They've looked incredible, even without Josh Simmons against the Lions on Sunday night. Your $15 million you gave Jalen Moore for this year finally come into play. He was excellent. He was you didn't hear his name on the broadcast all night, except for the fact that he was replacing Josh Simmons. So yeah, they do feel a little bit more complete. There are still some worries, some concerns, I think, in the backfield and the defensive line, but over like you said, Darcy, the Lions 34 points per game, and then the Chiefs go out and hold them to under 20. Yeah, you'll take that all day. This offense looks better than it did last year, and Patrick Mahomes looks back to MVP Pat type levels.
Well, Kyle, you mentioned the offensive line and, their success this season, their improvement on that left side has been one of the reasons that Patrick Mahomes has had this resurgence. But I want to go back and truly give, praise to Jalen Moore, who not only was filling in at left tackle, for Josh Simmons, who's dealing with a personal matter. So we found out the day of the game through walkthroughs that he was going to be the starter. And oh yeah, he had a kid earlier in the morning. So the fact that he probably didn't sleep very much, he had a child that day. He also found out he was starting, protecting Patrick Mahomes primetime on Sunday Night Football, to go through all of that and not be, bad, but also being one of the team's positive points. I think that only goes towards, how good he is as a player and, just how mentally tough you have to be, because I couldn't imagine having to do that. And he looked great.
Yeah, not only all those things, but you're going up against Aiden Hutchinson, who's one of the, the most elite pass rushers that this game has today. So, yeah, it was very impressive seeing Jalen, I guess live up to the contract that he received this offseason. Everybody in Chiefs Kingdom was kind of wondering whenever, he would get his opportunity, and it finally came. I don't think that anybody's happy about the circumstances. We don't know exactly what's going on with Josh. We hope that, everything's going fine. We don't want him to, we don't want to be without him too long, but if, that is the case, then we got somebody that can fill in and protect Pat and do just as good as Josh.
Yeah, and an underlying point is Jalen Moore's performance, I think, gives you a lot of hope for next year and at that right tackle spot, because I think everybody and their mother knows that Jawan Taylor is not long for the Chiefs, at least, past this year. So huge pickup by Brett Veach in the offseason, and I think it paid dividends last night, and I think it's going to be even better for next year, but we'll see.
No, absolutely. And again, the Chiefs needed that swing tackle that they could use, break in case of emergency, and last night was an emergency. And the guy that you paid a lot of money to sit on the bench, he earned that money last night. And so I want to give him a ton of praise. Congratulations on the kid, by the way. That's also, a huge milestone for his family. And then to start on Sunday Night Football, that's a great thing. But I want to talk about more of the positives from this game, and we'll do that right after this break. This video is sponsored by my friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, meaning no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and an ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow their Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all football season long. Now, fellas, I feel like most of this game, there was just positives all over the place, but I do also want to get into some of the negatives. But my final question on the positive side of things, was there anything you think we missed about this Chiefs team? You know what? I'm going to ask you about the defense, because while the pass rush did struggle to generate pressure, I thought the secondary and the linebackers were legit last night. So what were your thoughts on the Chiefs, back end of the defense?
Yeah, I think that the secondary played very well. I think they held Amon-Ra. I think Amon-Ra finished with 8 catches, but all of his catches were underneath. He didn't really have any explosive plays. I'd say the one place I'd look for improvement is probably just that linebacking crew. Sam Laporta is a great he's an elite talent at the tight end position, but it seems that all tight ends, no matter who we play, seem to feast against us. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a coverage issue, maybe a scheme issue, but it seems that tight ends just find their way against our defense. So I'd like to see maybe a little bit improved coverage from the linebacking crew, but I think the back end did do a great job. Noah Williams did a great job again. He got a little bit more snaps than last week, I believe. I'm not sure what was going on with the snap count last week, but he got a few more this week and took advantage of that.
Yeah, and to your point about Sam Laporta, he got going pretty quick early, and then he kind of tailed off. The Lions were clearly attacking that they were exploiting that matchup with Nick Bolton, and it was going their way a little bit. We like Nick Bolton, obviously, but coverage is definitely not his strong suit. But the Chiefs took it away, and coming into this game, what was your biggest fear? It was their Sonic and Knuckles at in the backfield with Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You held those guys to under 90 yards rushing. There's not going to be many teams that are going to do that this year, and the fact that the Chiefs pulled that off against 2 of the best in the game, and against an outstanding offensive line. I know they were on their 3rd string left tackle, but to be able to just halt the Lions in their running game, they really controlled the game. And I want to pull this up. The Lions only ran up the ball 4 times for 6 yards in the second half. So just complete domination by the Chiefs, and hats off to the coaching staff for an excellent game plan.
Well, part of the reason that they had so much success in the second half at stopping the run is because the Chiefs were able to double dip, and they scored close to the end of the half, and then they got the ball back in the second half, and they scored again. And that's the kind of stuff that when you can get up, against the Lions, they have to throw their way back into it, and your coverage, you feel pretty good on the back end of at least slowing down, all those weapons the Lions have. But, you mentioned the Lions' rushing stats. The Chiefs outrushed the Lions yesterday. Like, they had more rushing yards in this game, which I did not have on my bingo card coming into this game, but it just goes to show you how dominant this defense was and how timely, Isaiah Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes were able to break off, pretty effective runs. And even Kareem Hunt as the game ended up winding down. But, this game had so many positives. I do very quickly want to get into some of the negatives. What was your biggest negative from this game? And we'll start with Kyle.
Oh, biggest negative. I think I'm going to stick with the pass rush. The Chiefs had one sack, and it was pretty much a coverage sack. Jared Goff had a lot of time to throw. And the PFF grades will tell you, but that defensive line is really just it's Chris Jones and a bunch of guys. I know George Karlaftis. He was tied with Aiden Hutchinson of Detroit coming into the Sunday Night Football for the league lead in pressures. He's just not getting home. The other guys have to step up. I thought Chris Jones. We had an entire video dedicated to Chris Jones last week. Chris Jones is great. He was awesome in this game, and I think really kind of earned his money in the fourth quarter there at the end. But yeah, other than that, the defensive line still is an issue, and I'm surprised the Lions weren't able to take better advantage of it. I guess, but I guess that really leads me to just credit the secondary. They were outstanding, pretty much locked down. And another positive I forgot actually, 0 penalties for the Chiefs. We didn't bring that up.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, after 13 last week, yeah, I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I hate to be that guy, but man, Harrison Butker is really struggling.
Yeah.
He is really struggling so far. I think every game this year he has missed either an extra point or a field goal attempt, which is just absolutely unheard of from him. A guy who's been one of the top 2 or 3 kickers in the league, almost his entire tenure with the Chiefs, and it's getting to the point where it's become worrisome because in the red zone, I think we were more conservative before, and we tended to take take the 3 points and just kind of let our defense work it out. But it's good and bad because it makes our offense a little bit more aggressive. Andy, which that may have just been because of the Lions. When sometimes you just face off against a team and going into it you're going to have to be more aggressive. But you saw that last night. Andy didn't even think about bringing the field goal unit out. Sometimes he just went right into the play sheet to look at what we were going to draw up on fourth down. So I love the guy so much, man, and it hurts to see him, struggling like this. I'm hoping that he can figure things out, but it's definitely a problem at this point.
I do like the aggressiveness from Andy Reid on fourth down. I think that whether Harrison Butker is making kicks or not, you should probably be aggressive, especially when you have the offense that you do. But, I feel like my negatives are both what you just said. Like, the pass rush continues to be an issue. The only sack they had in this game was when Charles Omenihu had a sack. It was a coverage sack where Chris Jones basically
Chris Jones got to the quarterback first.
And Charles Omenihu just fell on him. And so, that's how they got their sack. They couldn't really generate any consistent pressure. And, George Karlaftis was top 10 in pressures. Not all pressures are created equal. I'll just say that. And then, Caden, your point about Harrison Butker, I think he's missed in 5 out of the 6 games. You can't have that. And this is someone that it seems like it's a confidence issue at this point. But either way, if he doesn't start making kicks, it's going to cost the Chiefs a game. So I definitely think that there were a couple negatives in this game, but overwhelmingly, there were a ton of positives. And like Kyle mentioned, no penalties after a week where you committed, I think, 13. That's a huge win. So
no turnovers as well. No turnovers, which I think I saw a stat last night. There's since 1972, I think there's maybe been only 1 or 2 games in which the team has no turnovers, no penalties. So it's crazy.
And it's crazy to see them basically pull a complete 180 and just turn themselves around after a pretty embarrassing performance last week in Jacksonville. So things are trending on the up and up. My final question for both of you is, where can the people find your content? And we'll start with Caden.
You can find me on Sports Radio 810 WHB, the night shift with Michael, on Wednesday nights whenever the MLB playoffs get over with. And then you can find me right here on the KC Sports Report.
Find me at the same places as Caden. Just add in, I produce the program with Saran Petro weekdays 2 to 6 on Sports Radio 810.
And guys, all their stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Go follow them on social media, specifically Twitter. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, go Chiefs.